Hi, I'm Christian Peter with Dark Horse Commercial, and today I'm here to talk to you about the ultimate guide for warehouse owners, how to sell for top dollar. Now, let's talk about why this guide matters. A lot of folks that own in the market have been surprised at how much the market has changed over the last 4 to 5 years, especially since COVID. So we're going to do an overview in future videos of the Miami warehouse market. What we're going to do today is just give you kind of a gloss over a 30,000 foot view of what is to come, and it's every step along the way of what you need to do in order to sell for top dollar. So we're going to explain throughout the series why so many warehouse owners leave money on the table. It's not their fault, and it's not what you might think. And finally, you'll learn about what it can, how it can directly impact your bottom line. Most important, more dollars in your pocket. So understanding the Miami industrial market, there's a lot of supply and demand trends that we're going to get deep into in future videos, but we're also going to discuss cap rates, what's prevailing these days, what the lease rates are doing currently year to date, and then finally buyer types. The influence of zoning, we're going to go through some of the industrial zoning classifications and which ones are more preferential to certain types of investors and owner users, and why timing your sale is everything in this market. We'll also go into who's going to be buying your warehouse and for what reason. Certain warehouses set up better for owner users versus investors. We're going to go into that. We're also going to talk about the actual buyers, right? Whether they're going to be REITs, they're going to be institutional players, 1031 exchange buyers, what I like to call the unicorn buyers, but they are out there. You just have to know where to look for them. We're also going to talk about what each buyer type values and how to position your property accordingly for that highest and best buyer. And then finally, red flags that are going to scare buyers away. Now, in my years, and now I'm going into my 23rd year in commercial real estate, in my years I've learned the 7 common mistakes that kill value. And I see it unfortunately over and over and over again. These are the kind of the common avoidable pitfalls that a lot of owners step into unknowingly. So we're going to go into those so that you don't have to make the same mistakes as others that have tried to sell in this market. So we're going to talk about the concept of underpricing, overpricing, because you can do both. Excuse me. And they were talking about deferred maintenance and unpermitted structures and the effect that has on value. Bad lease structure, short remaining terms, some of the things that people that are kind of logical, where they think they're doing the right thing, but actually they're shooting themselves in the foot. Incomplete or sloppy records, poor marketing exposure, zoning or legal issues that are left unaddressed or swept under the rug, and finally choosing the wrong broker, or worse yet, going solo. So we'll also talk about how to maximize with strategic preparation, right? I do not believe that hope is a business model, right? I believe in strategic preparation, right? So let's talk about some of the things that can be done. Cleaning, repairs, simple cosmetic upgrades. We're going to show you the ones that move the needles and the ones that don't put any dollars in your pocket. In fact, they take dollars out of your pocket for extra costs. We're also going to talk about the different types of environmental reports, phase 1, phase 2, and how they impact buyers and buyers' perception of your property. We'll also talk about how to, in the final 6 months before selling, how to boost the NOI for maximum value. And then finally, the power of clean financials. Why is it so important that your financials, rent rolls, and permitting is clean? Next up, we're going to talk about pricing your property to create a bidding war. Right? There's different ways of looking at properties. In fact, there's 3 different ways that we look at. And we're going to dive, like I said, headlong into that. But we're going to talk about the appraisal value versus the market value, what you need to know, how different people are looking at your property. So the way party A is looking to utilize your property versus party B, they're going to have different valuation metrics, and we'll explain those in detail. We'll also talk about BOV strategies, things that you can do to increase the value, why testing the market, and we say that in air quotes, why that oftentimes backfires, and then finally real case studies of how we put properties on the market and what we did to get properties to sell for 10% above asking. Next, we're going to talk about marketing for maximum exposure. We're going to talk about, does professional photography, drone, 3D tours, do they actually move the needle, or are they a waste of time and resources? We're going to talk about why properties sell off-market versus on-market and the pros and cons of each. talking about targeting national and international buyers, and then finally the right broker markets. How they do it. You know, do you just put it up on LoopNet, CoStar, Crexi, or is there a method to the madness, and there are certain ways so that you can get more eyeballs on your property, leading to the highest dollar value for it. Next up is going to be negotiating, right? How to read buyer motivation, right? How to create leverage with multiple offers, and we'll show you how specific things that we do kind of behind the curtain that lead to multiple offers. What terms matter more? Everyone thinks that price is the one term that matters the most, and sometimes it does, but oftentimes, believe it or not, it does not. Sometimes due diligence, deposits, contingencies, financing scenarios, there's all kinds of different things that can help move the needle and get the job done. And then finally, in this part, how to avoid getting shopped. There's nothing worse than putting your property under contract and then you find out, weeks later, months later even, that someone's been shopping your contract all across town. Closing without surprises. Titles, lien searches, and municipal liens. What is entailed, what it takes to get your property so that it's smooth and so there's no hiccups or no landmines along the way. How to handle estoppels and tenant cooperation. We have tips and tricks for that. And then finally, the role of attorneys, and then post-closing tax and 1031 planning. There are ways to minimize, if not eradicate, any tax implications post-sale. So we're going to go into those as well. Next up, we're going to talk about bonus strategies for tax advantage exits. Not every exit are you going to just pay the tax man the complete amount. There's different ways of using 1031s effectively. There's also opportunity zone funds, which we will get into. Also, you can hold notes for seller financing for tax deferral. So there are different ways of being creative so that you put the most amount of money in your pocket. Let's talk about one of the most important things is how to choose the right broker, right? Well, what interview questions do you ask of them? How to vet track records and specialties? Because a lot of people can put a nice, profile picture up on LinkedIn and voila, who's to say someone's been in the business 1 month versus 1 year versus 2 decades, right? As an example. Red flags to watch out for, case studies, how the broker, we're going to talk about how in a previous transaction, how the right broker got $1 million more for a deal. We're going to get into the weeds on that one as well. And in conclusion, we're going to go into depth on the stakes. What is at stake for actually getting this process right? For a lot of folks, they might only own 1, maybe 2 assets. For the majority of the people that we work with might only own 1 or 2, and so it might be a large chunk of their net worth, and so it's very, very important to do it once and do it right. We're going to talk about your action plan to start preparing today, even if you're not taking the property to market, what you can do so that either whether it's today, a month, a year, 2 years from now, 5 years, whatever, you're going to get the most amount for your property. And then finally, we're going to offer you a broker opinion of value so that we can sit down, roll up our sleeves, and look at what your property is actually worth. And we're going to talk about the kind of the roadmap on the way to getting your property sold. So we're gonna talk about that in detail. So go ahead and stay tuned. We look forward to seeing you on the subsequent videos. If you're going to go ahead on our YouTube channel, just go ahead and click down below. Or if you're getting this from our newsletter, you'll see it coming up in the days and weeks to follow. Look forward to seeing you there.